You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Voice of Reason. My name is Ted Durden. I'm a Southern Democrat.
And I'm Mark Reed, a West Coast Republican.
And together we are The Voice of Reason. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, this is a politically motivated podcast where civil discourse is the order of the day, where Mark and I find that we have more things that unite us than we do that divide us. And as I do every week, I'll toss the ball over to my co-host, Mark Reed.
Well, before I get this show lit up with my personal feelings about what the hell is going on with the coronavirus and how this administration and our local governments, our mayors, our governors of all the different states and stuff are responding to it, inclusive of people in the community and in which way they're responding to it. I'm going to let Ted do his monologue first, and we're going to dive right into this one. We're going to have fun.
Okay. I know what I'm about to say is going to be very controversial.
No, it won't.
Yeah, it isn't, and that's okay. The coronavirus. I'm not trying to sound cold-hearted or anything like that. I don't mean to sound unfeeling. The people that have died as a result of it is a human tragedy. But I personally have to agree, and I think it was a Washington Post journalist that wrote, and he was highly vilified, that he did not think shutting down the American economy was worth it. He did not think all the deaths or the potential deaths were worth shutting down the American economy. He got vilified for that because people said, how can you be so cold? How can you be so heartless? The loss of human life. Any loss of human life was a tragedy. But here's my problem. I look at this as an economic pandemic. I look at lives will be ruined, that there are going to be families, there are going to be jobs that will never, ever recover from this. I believe there could have certainly been a better way of handling this. I don't believe the shutting down of states, the shutting down of businesses should have been done. Well, I appreciate what the White House is trying to do by passing the stimulus package. Let's be honest. The money that the average American citizen is going to get is going to be the pimple on an ass of what they need. That's not going to solve anything. That's like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It won't change anything. I agree with what President Trump is talking about doing, ending this by Easter. We have got to get back to work. We have got to do that. Our society, our system is not set up for this. We just aren't. That's my opinion.
Well, if you remember my monologue last week, Ted, I talked about cost versus benefit, and that the way in which this administration and this country is handling it's economic suicide.
It is.
You know, and I've listened to so many of the liberals out there talking about, oh, it's going to hit Los Angeles, it's going to be horrible. They did a report today with the CDC and the people who are handling this pandemic and said, look, the on-the-ground data does not show that 40 to 60% of the people are going to get it. It just doesn't pan out. They do not have a model that's going to show that.
It's just Gavin Newsom's opinion.
Exactly. And, well, not even Gavin Newsom. It's just all of the fanatics that are out there going nuts right now. There's a lot of fear going on.
There is.
And it's been generated by the press.
And Gavin Newsom is going to be at the center of it because he held a press conference where he estimated that 50% of Californians
60.
Well, I thought it was 50. Anyway, he was talking about 22 to 26 million Californians are going to get it. And like you said, there's no model for that. It is pure speculation. And all that does is foster greater fear. That's all it does. And I think it's irresponsible.
See, I want to, go ahead and second your comments. We're not being cold about this. I think everybody needs to follow the CDC recommendations. It's old school recommendations. Ted, you probably grew up with the same kind of recommendations from your mother and your grandmother. Look, when you go out into the general public, you don't put your hands in your mouth. You don't put them on your eyes. You don't stick them up your nose. You don't pass the germs, the general germs of society into you. You're very careful out there. If you're sick, you stay home. If you happen to have a cough or you sneeze, you cough and sneeze into your elbow. Or you have a handkerchief, the old cloth handkerchief.
Right, wrap around your face, too.
Around your face, you sneeze in there. And you don't touch things. And I've always practiced this myself. And I haven't had the flu in over 10 years. Okay? And I'm around children all the time with the companies that I own. And then if you're an employer, when I had employees, if they came in sick, I sent them home because I didn't want them to get the rest of my employees sick.
Absolutely
and I gave them
not.
a paid day off. I gave them a couple days paid off. So that way they can go home and recover. That's it. That's just common sense stuff. If you're out there in the world and you see somebody who's sick, you don't run up and give them a hug and a kiss.
No, you don't.
Hell no, unless you
You
really
don't.
believe in sharing. I mean, it's like, no, I don't want it. You can keep it. It's all yours. I stay away from them. Even if I'm fully recovered from a cold, I do not hug somebody and I do not even shake their hand. And I'll tell them, look, I'm not being rude. I just got over a cold and I don't want to share. And they're like,
Right.
thank you very much. Because they know it. This is called common sense. It's called common practices within society. But getting into that, you watch the Mayor of Cosmo over there in New York. They're freaking out. Not trying to sound mean and everything else, like you said. It's like, look. Little bit about me. Growing up, before I got married, I probably held the hands of 10 people who passed away before I was 21 years old.
Right.
Okay? I've seen people get killed. Okay? There's no problems. After that, I've held the hands of my brother. I've held the hands of my brother-in-law. I held the hand of my father-in-law when they passed away. I made funeral arrangements for my father-in-law and for my brother. Another brother passed away. I had to help out with that as well. I've been shot in the head. I've gone through all kinds of crap. And even today, my granddaughter was taken to the hospital in an ambulance because they thought her appendix ruptured. Okay? And I'm still dealing with that. It's like, you know what, America? Pull your damn pants up and grow up. This is not as bad as it seems. Everybody is sitting here on one Facebook site. They went after me saying, look what's happening in New York. Well, in New York, a person dies in New York every 9 minutes. Every freaking 9 minutes, a person dies in New York.
Right.
Now they're sitting here complaining because 450 people died over there.
Well, here's the thing about
Okay.
that. Here's my opinion about that. You have to look at it. California is different from New York. New York is a much smaller landmass than California.
It's more,
the
the population density is worse than California.
It really and truly is. And so it's not surprising that it is sort of at the epicenter of what has happened with the coronavirus in the United States because it is a congested state. California is wide and sprawling. It's wide and sprawling. So you cannot take the same rules and apply it to New York as you do to California. Business is conducted differently here. People live differently here. They don't live on top of each other the way that they do in New York. So you cannot apply that. I mean, social distancing, one of the things that I thought would make sense, even at the very beginning, if you would keep the elderly quarantined, make sure that they were not exposed or minimize their exposure. If you had families that had elderly grandparents at home or even elderly parents at home, if you venture outside on the home, make sure you have plastic gloves and you have a mask. Make sure they do when you come home. As soon as you come home, take off your clothes and wash them. If you can't go out and buy hand sanitizer, you take some soap, take some alcohol, squeeze in a little lemon juice, bingo. You have homemade hand sanitizer. There's all ways and all sorts of things that can be done that did not require the shuttering of businesses. There were too many alternatives that we had. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I think it was a lot of panic that was put out. And I think the way that they're going about this, especially in California, is just wrong.
That's what I said in the monologue last time. I saw it happening. I know what's happening. And now we're going to dive into a little bit about this stupid, lame stimulus package that's going on, or this Healthy Families, or what is Families First Act that they've got going on. How is it Families First Act? I'm just going to go through a couple of things here, just for the hell of it, right? These are the proposed. I haven't seen I read the 1,400-page bill that the Democrats on the House side proposed. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen the Senate bill yet, the original one. I haven't read it, but I read the 1,400-page one that jumped it from $850 billion to $850 billion to $2.5 trillion.
Well, before you get started, let me just say this. Okay, let's look at the beginning of this. Trump proposed $750 billion. Mm-hmm. Congress said, okay, let's kick it up to $850 billion. All of a sudden, we have $2.2 trillion. I did some very simple math. If you paid every American citizen in the United States $1,200, that was $732 billion. If you add into that $2,000, up to $2,000 for families of four, that would probably get you to $900 billion. That's just to American citizen. And Mark is going to answer that last piece of the question I'm going to ask. Where the hell is $1.3 trillion going? Mark, it's all yours.
Well, I was just going to ask you how proud you are as a Democrat today. When the Democrats proposed $1 billion for more Obama phones. That was in there.
What the hell is an Obama phone?
That's the free phones that are given to people that are how would you say, in the poor. Indigent is the word for it. Yeah, okay. That are poor. They're in the poverty level of income. So that's an Obama
there are programs
phone,
for that already.
Right? There's 200. Yeah, but they wanted $1 billion more for it. Okay, they wanted $227 million for grants to states with youth activities. $260 million for grants to states for dislocated worker employment and training activities, included supportive services and needed related payments. They've got $10 million for migrant and seasonal farm programs. What has that got to do with this? What's going on? You got $100 million in there for Job Corps, $15 million for program administration. They've got $6,500,000 to the wage and hour division.
What the hell is that?
Well, I have no clue what it is. They got $13 million for OSHA. $30 million.
For what?
Who knows? They got $10 million for the Susan Howard training grant. Susan Harwood, it's a school, right? Training grants. Well, what the hell is this stuff?
If the schools are closed, why do you need training grants?
Right, they got $1.3 billion for primary health care.
Well, I don't have a problem with that.
That's kind of
that's fine. That's fine.
That's fine. That's not too bad. Okay, $75 million for student aid administration.
Stop. If student loans are good, I know, but
that one's different.
Okay,
this is student aid administration.
But if the students aren't going to school, as far as I understand, colleges are closed. They're doing everything online. Why do you need student aid?
Yeah. Well, that's not the student aid. This is the administration for student aid. Oh, my God.
Okay.
This is for the admin.
Shoot me in the head
This is the admin. This isn't for the students.
Wow.
This is for the admin implementing the student programs. They got $9.5 billion for higher education.
Isn't that college?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
But what does this have to do with the coronavirus?
Nothing at all.
Government economy shutdown.
Nothing whatsoever. And I said this when somebody came to me and we were talking about this. I said there's going to be so much pork in this stimulus package, and this is proof positive. Go ahead, Mark.
You got $3 million for maritime administration. It's on page 172.
Again, why?
You got $5 million for salaries and expensive office of the Inspector General. No voter ID to get a ballot, anonymous ballot harvesting. Okay, can you imagine that one? Well, why is voting?
Why is the Inspector General in there?
I got something in my phone here, right? You got $2,500,000 for public and Indian housing. I kind of agree. I'm Native, so it's kind of like, okay, that's cool. Get that in there, right? $5 million for community planning and development.
Why? There's nothing going on.
What's going on in there, right? They got $2,500,000 for office of housing.
Well, that might make sense for homeless people. Okay, I give that.
They got $1.5 billion for tenant-based rental assistant office of public and Indian housing. Again, yeah, most of the residents are broke, and they have been because the government has shut them off drastically. Okay, but still, what does it have to do with the coronavirus stuff? Yeah. You got $1 billion of which can be used as additional administrative and other expenses, and on that,
how vague and ambiguous.
On that note, before I keep going on, we're going to take a break to pay our bills because we actually pay our own damn bills here.
Wow.
Okay, so on that, we'll see you in about 35, 40 seconds.
I can't get a grant for that?
Welcome back to the show. I'm going to go on with this list of all this pork that was rammed into this bill. We'll find out what the final is once I get a hold of that one. And next week we'll probably talk a little bit about it. But they got $720 million to public housing fund. They've got $100 million for community block grants for Native Americans.
Well, like I said,
I'm a little
said,
partial to
and
that.
that's fine. And like to the housing, I don't have a problem with it because they don't know what to do with them. Okay.
But still, this has been my argument to the public. Okay, what the hell does it have to do with families first that have been damaged and businesses that have been damaged by the coronavirus and the government's economic shutdown? What does this have to do?
I can answer that for you.
But no, if these bills came up on their own, okay, which they should come up on their own for the expenditures because that's the House's prerogative, the control of the purse strings.
Right.
I would be all for them. I'd vote for them. Okay, but why is it jammed into this bill?
The public housing I can understand because it was something that I have yet to hear an answer for. You have the homeless out there who
This was on Indian land.
No, the one above that. The one above that. The one talking about for the public housing fund.
Right.
So that would make sense because they don't have yet to come with a solution for the homeless, what to do with those. So the public housing may be for them to get them off the streets to make sure that they're what is done with them to make sure the coronavirus doesn't spread. That makes sense.
They've got $720 million. Gavin Newsom spent how many billions? Jack, how many? Do you remember how much Gavin Newsom spent in San Francisco for the homeless? It was a couple $1 billion, and it only grew. It only grew. Unless they get to the root causes, which goes all the way down to families, schooling,
mental health,
community, mental health, drug addiction. Unless you get to the root causes of why they're on the street to begin with, all you're doing is throwing a Band-Aid on the damn thing.
And you're right about that. It's not solving the problem.
No, it's absolutely not. It only grows it. Because once you have a person who is used to playing the game, all right, utilizing everybody's heartstrings, public funding for giveaways, they're just going to, why do I got to go to work?
Once you create a dependent, always a dependent.
Exactly.
Come on, let's keep going.
You've got in here $250 million for House block grants for the tribes. A lot of Indian stuff in here. So I'm fine. $130 million for AIDS housing, but they should be independent bills. Why they all of a sudden are stuffing this all in here?
Right.
This is a campaign minute for them.
Oh, no, it's for everybody as far as I'm concerned.
And if this president or the Republicans said no to any of this, they're denying, housing for AIDS. No, this bill is specific. I keep saying this. When I'm in Congress, I want to see clean bills. If you want $150 million or $130 million for AIDS housing, I am not opposed to it. I want to see it, a program. I want to vote for it.
Separate.
I want it clean. I want to know where it's going. I want to know what department is going to handle it. And I want to do the oversight and watch it through.
Right.
That's it. Now you got in here again, you got $20 million of which goes to one-time grantees, whatever the hell that means. Exactly, what does it mean? $20 million for goes to one-time grantees? What is that? It's vague as all hell. You got $15 billion for the community development fund.
Didn't we just have that up top?
Well, this is
in addition to.
Well, you wonder where the $1.5 trillion is. You're laying it out.
A lot of pork.
Only $10 million of which is set aside for infrastructure and fighting infectious diseases. This is what my opponent pushes as well. There's a bunch of garbage. You got $5 billion in homeless assistance. You said the other ones you thought was for homeless. You got $5 billion for homeless assistance in here. You got $100 billion for rental assistance. Okay, I can get the rental assistance. Okay, in the coronavirus, a lot of people are been laid off. Okay, they don't have work, or they're a gig economy and they're not working. They're going to need the rent assistance to stay. Otherwise, they're going to become homeless.
I think there's a better. I think there's a better way to do that.
I do too.
That only makes.
I can understand the line item.
No, I can understand that, but that only makes sense if it goes to the apartment owners. And we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, yes. Then you got an additional $7 million to enforce the Fair Housing Act.
Why do you need to do that? Why that should be enforced all? Yeah, exactly.
Don't they have a budget already? Paid family leave for sickness is two paid work weeks.
They already have that. Don't they have paid family leave?
Yeah. Then you got emergency family leave.
They already have that.
I already have that. Okay, then let me go to the next page here. I printed out 3 pages of this garbage. You got $100 million to NASA because who knows why?
Hey, it could
They're
get out.
gonna
It
do-
could
they're gonna do
it
some
could get
research
out.
up there,
It could
right?
go out in space.
Who knows?
We got to make sure the Mars doesn't get
The Martians might get coronavirus.
Could be.
You got to
Could
go
be.
up there and check them out.
Check it out.
right?
Yeah.
Reverse, you know. You got $20 billion to the United States Postal Service because what the hell not? Why not? You know what it's for? It's paying up their pension. It's time for the Democrats to get all the postal workers throughout the United States because they put it into one federal pension plan, which is basically going broke. So they're finally buttressing it up with this $20 billion. Bam, you got it right there.
No. You know what that is? You know what that is?
What's that?
The United States Postal Service is losing money, and I think that's to shore up the losses.
It's to,
I
it's
bet
to
you that's
shore
what
up
that
the
is.
losses, but their losses are reflected in their inability of the pension plans and the health care plans. So they're buttressing up. But what has it got to do with the coronavirus?
Nothing whatsoever,
Of
nothing.
The Family's First Act.
Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing
nothing.
whatsoever.
You got $300 million to the endowment of the arts.
Why?
You got $300 million to the endowment of the humanities. You got $15 million for veterans employment training.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't
I
have
don't have
any
a problem
problem
with
with that. I think it should be $15 billion, to be honest with you, but it should be on its own dang bill.
Yeah.
What's Congress been doing for 3 years or 2 years since the Democrats got this? What are they doing? Making up for lost time right now because they should have freaking done this crap?
I tell you what.
I mean,
go ahead.
I told you. Let's put on our big boy pants and let's do the job we elected them to do.
Mm-hmm.
But no, people get after me because they say I'm cold-hearted. Bullshit. This gets me pissed off more than anything. Like I said, you got to be really proud of your Democrat Party. And I'm just jabbing you right in the side as hard as I
but the
can.
Republicans been along with it.
But I asked you, what did the Republicans put into the bill?
Well, look,
Okay?
I don't know.
We'll go on here. $430 million for mental health support. That's a lot. I agree.
I don't have a
but
problem
it should
with that
be a
either.
separate bill.
Right.
You got $30 billion for the Department of Education Stabilization Fund because that will keep people employed. Well, what the hell is it? $30 billion?
I don't understand either.
Do you know how much Harvard has in their foundation? They have billions of dollars in their foundation. The federal government still is paying them. They got billions of dollars.
Go to the next one.
Okay? You got $200 million to Safe Schools Emergency Response to Violence Program.
Again, what does that have to do with the coronavirus?
Exactly. Another slush funds for this, all their crap, their pet projects. You got $300 million to public broadcasting. The NPR has to be bought by the Democrats.
Yeah, well, public broadcasting, the broadcasting about the coronavirus, I can see that.
But public broadcasting is already funded by the damn government and by donations. Now, I was on the board of directors at KCET. They hated Republicans. Okay, they didn't like me, but they recruited me to be on their board of directors to get something done. I got it done. Okay, but for 20 years they couldn't get this project done. I got it done for
KCET?
them. On KCET. Yes, the program that I established, PBS wanted to expand it. That's nationwide, the public broadcasting.
right,
but KCET is part of the public broadcasting.
Right,
Okay.
along with NPR.
They get all of their endowments from the government and private donations. Okay. So, but they hated Republicans. Why? Because Republicans wanted to hold them to account of where their money was going. The Democrats just keep feeding them money. So you got $300 million. What station do you know out there gets money from the government to operate?
Not one.
None of your cable news shows.
No, they don't.
No, none of your major networks do.
No.
They charge by advertising. This again, public broadcasting means to me a public subsidized entity that loses money because they don't know how to run a business. So they got 300. But again, what does it have to do with the coronavirus? Not a damn thing. They got $500 million to museums and libraries.
Why?
Why?
I don't understand that
you had $25 million going to what do you call it? The Kennedy Center. I looked it up on their what do you call it? On their financial sheet. Okay, I have it right here. Their total sales for ticket sales.
You're talking about the Kennedy Center,
The
right?
Kennedy Center,
Okay.
right? The Cultural Arts Center. We had Kennedy in here,
Right.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Right.
I like the Kennedy family. I really do. I think they were one of the great, patriotic families
they're American
of
royalty.
America.
They're
American
American
royalty. They
Right,
really
they
are.
are.
But this doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just named the Kennedy Cultural Center after, Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy,
Right.
And John F. Kennedy, because he was killed.
Right.
Okay? No problem. Can you imagine if they put some money in here for the Nixon Library?
If they did it for the Kennedy
25
Center,
million,
why not?
why not? How about the Ronald Reagan?
Well, and that's a beautiful library.
Yeah.
I've never been to Nixon, but I've been to Reagan.
Yeah,
That
Reagan's
is
a great one,
that's a
but
beautiful
they're a very well-run library. They're not hurting for money. Even in this coronavirus crap, they're not hurting for money.
Yeah, well, you
Okay,
got
they're run
500 million
properly.
for all the museums.
But you look at the ticket sales. The ticket sales for this, okay, is $28 million. That's right there, $28,417, $449 based on their accounting. Okay, anybody that's been displaced by employment is going to get 4 months. That's it. So what's 1/4 of 28 million? Is it 25 million?
No, 20.
So what are they getting? What are they getting? 25 million. Now another one. Congress, is getting $25 million for salaries for the House of Representatives. It's not spelled out. Now my consultant said, don't say it's going directly to salaries for congressmen, because that would be a $56,000 raise or a $47,000 raise if it included the senators as well. Okay? But what is it for? It doesn't spell it out. He was saying, well, it might be for their staff so they can hire better staff. I said, but it doesn't say that. It says salary for the House of Representatives. What does that mean? It's ambiguous at best.
They can do whatever they want.
They do whatever the hell they want. So all of a
want.
sudden, they already get an automatic 3% pay raise every year. Automatic. They don't even have to vote on it. They get it. It's cost of living raise. This is where it really pisses me off that they've taken this pandemic. It's a crisis. I agree it's a crisis. It's not a good thing. But the way they're responding to it is very similar to what I've seen out in the general public. The general public doesn't look this crap up. They don't read the
have no idea.
1,400-page bill.
No.
They don't know what's in it, but yet they get thrown some crumbs. First, the government comes in here and screws up the economy like you wouldn't believe. They build it up like, oh, unbelievable. Okay, we're at almost 30,000 on the stock market.
Right.
Okay, everybody's doing great. Wham, they crash it all the way down to 19,000. They take away 11,000 points right off the bat. Trillions of dollars gone immediately.
Right.
But it's not gone on the rich. Remember, they bet on the downturn.
No.
They're making money when it goes down.
Even if you look at the way the stimulus package is set up, it actually benefits the majority, those who are majority shareholders in corporations. And I agree with you. This $1,200 that the American citizens are going to get, that's the pimple on the ass. That's not going to solve anything.
That's nothing.
It's not going to solve anything.
That's nothing.
And it's like I told you, the off-camera conversation that we had. This whole thing, it's political fodder. That's all it is. It's political fodder. Because here's what happened. I agree with you. The Trump administration is desperate to do something to try to turn this economy around. That's why he initially.
I think he got a little terrified.
No.
About a pandemic and the possibilities of what it could do because it was unknown.
Well, he didn't get nervous about the pandemic per se. Trump didn't realize the gravity of the situation until the stock market started crashing.
Yeah.
That's when he became concerned, and that's when he realized just how severe this is. It was at that point. And so because he wanted to try to do something to stimulate the American economy, he came up with the $750 billion. That's what I said, and Congress said $850 billion. Then the Democrats held the Trump administration hostage, and I'll own that, and said, okay, we want this, we want this, we want this, we want that. So then it ballooned to $2.2 trillion. This is all political theater. It makes for great sound bites. It makes for great news. The Trump administration can say, hey, look at what I did. Democrats say, well, look at what they did. We did more. I'm sorry. It's like I said, you got to look at that man behind the mirror, because even though you have those banks, you have Wells Fargo, Chase, and Citibank, who have indicated that their lenders do not have to pay the mortgage for the next 3 months. There's been a moratorium on foreclosures. There's been a moratorium on evictions. However, I haven't heard anything about forgiveness programs.
Not at all.
Because at some point.
On that note, we're going to go to our advertisements. We're going to pick it right up from there. We'll see you in a minute and a half. 2 minutes and a half, actually. Hi, I want to welcome Rusty Levin and Harry Nabanian, both trial lawyers for workman comp cases. If you're injured on the job, don't hesitate. Contact an attorney. I did when I was wounded or injured on my job, and I thought I would trust my employer, and it didn't work out quite well. So I found Rusty Levin, handled my case like a professional, worked out way better than any other lawyer that I talked to would have worked out. So Rusty, tell us a little bit about your company of Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers.
So at our firm at Levin Albania Trial Lawyers, we handle all matters of workers' compensation, personal injury, and employment disputes, wrongful termination matters, and things like that. We were able to help Mr. Reed out with his workers' compensation case. Unfortunately, workers' compensation injury can be very stressful, intense situation. And at Levin Albanian, we try to get you the most benefit we can of the law, while also easing the stress and anxiety that comes along with that situation, and getting you back on your feet. My partner, Mr. Labandian, he handles the personal injury sides, and I'll let him take it from there.
And just like all injured employees out there, anybody else who gets injured as a result of somebody else's negligence has rights, and the rights that they need to protect immediately. And they should do that by calling Levin and Albanian Trial Lawyers and letting us help ease that tension off of you and get you the result you deserve, while also making sure that you get better in the progress. So we're here for you, folks.
Levin and Nabanian Trial Lawyers is the best company for you to get a hold of when you're injured or have a personal injury. So give them a call at
213-232-4848, 213-232-4848. Thank you.
and let them handle the stress for you while you recover at home. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Ted Durden, and I want to take a moment to talk to you about trust, and I trust churchandlaw.com. When it comes to workers' compensation and employment law, you can trust churchandlaw.com. If you ever need legal advice you can rely on, it's churchandlaw.com. Black and white, no gray, churchandlaw.com. 818-230-3110, churchandlaw.com. A law firm you can trust and count on.
Back to the voice of reason with Ted and I. You're bringing up some really good stuff before we went to break, Ted. And
let me wrap that up.
Okay.
So like I indicated, there's a moratorium on the mortgages. There's a moratorium on the evictions. That's all great. But at some point, those tickets come due. Now, the mortgage lenders may end up tacking those 3 months at the end of your loan. But what about renters? And I'm not just talking about tenants. I'm talking about business tenants as well.
Every renter.
Right, because if you have a business, unless you own the building, you're paying rent. So if your business is shut down for 3 months, however long it is.
I think Starbucks is the one that came out and said they refuse to pay the rent on all their stores. They're refusing to pay the rent. As long as they're being forced by the government to shut down, they're refusing to pay the rent, and that's it.
Yeah, and so does that mean they can't be sued? Of course they can be sued, but again, that ticket's going to come due. Who's going to pay that?
Because most often in all of your contract agreements is things are void beyond your control.
Okay.
Right. This is why even your sports guys, your athletes, also in the theater and everything else, their contracts state in there that they don't have to be paid if something comes about that is beyond their control. I mean, it's an act of God.
Right. Yeah, but I don't think that's going to help someone who's renting an apartment.
Well, that's not an act of God.
I know
that doesn't apply to them.
But that simply just goes further, makes my point. You have somebody who can't pay their rent for 3 months. Okay, they can't be evicted. So once they can finally go back to work, they still got to pay their 3 months some kind of way. They may still end up being evicted.
The point that I was going to bring up, and when you were bringing up what you were saying, is where the hell is our press? The press should have this bill, this Families First bill. They should be going through it with a fine-tooth comb and holding both Republicans and Democrats,
they should be,
their feet to the damn fire and say, why the hell do you have this in the bill? You guys, you didn't create the pandemic. You didn't create, the corona or the COVID-19 virus. You didn't create it. But you have crashed the economy. Okay, so what are you doing to bring it back and restarting the engines of the economy?
Right.
Are you sitting there, all this extra crap? I mean, look, they've got in here, Ted, here's another thing. the Department of State Migration and Refugee Assistance for an additional amount of the Migration and Refugee Assistance, $300 million, to remain available until expended for necessary expenses to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus, provided that such amount is designated by Congress as being an emergency required pursuant to Section 25B2AI. Well, what the hell is that? Why is it in there? Okay, and then you get into here, now the Voting Act garbage, okay? It's allowing voting prior to the date of election. 1, in general, each state shall allow individuals to vote in an election for federal office during an early voting period, which occurs prior to the date of the election in the same manner as voting is allowed on such date. Length of period. The early voting period required under the subsection with respect to the election shall consist of a period consecutive of days, including weekends, which begins on the 15th day before the date of the election, or the option of the state on the day prior to the 15th date before the date of the election and ends on the date of the election. In general, okay, what has that got to freaking do with an American First Act
Nothing
of
whatsoever.
helping people out? Now, this goes beyond it. These are excerpts directly from the bill. Okay, I'm reading it right from the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, study on certain climate change mitigation efforts. In general, no later than 90 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Secretary of Transportation shall seek to enter into an agreement with the National Academies of Sciences, Engineers, and Medicine, referred to in this section of the National Academies, to conduct a study on climate change mitigation efforts with respect to the civil aviation and aerospace industries.
Again, what does that have to do with the coronavirus?
Remember
just like the money that was designated for NASA. For what?
Remember the clunkers for cash?
I remember that. Yeah.
They have an airliner's clunkers for cash. I'm serious. In this bill, an airline corporation that has an airline that's not as fuel efficient as the existing airlines, they can sell it to the government, okay, as long as they go out and buy another plane.
Wait a minute. Is that in this bill?
It's in the bill.
Oh my God.
I'm not joking. Where do they come up with this crap? You're wondering where the $1.5 trillion came from?
Wow.
I mean, this is bizarre. And then, diversity report, the Congressional COVID-19 Aid Oversight Panel, in conjunction with the SIGTARP, shall collect diversity data from a corporation that received federal aids from the COVID-19 and issue a report that will be made publicly available no later than 1 year after the disbursement of funds, in addition to any other data that the report shall include. They got diversity requirements in this crap because a corporation has been forced to take a major 3-month to a 4-month hit that's going to take them 8 months to 9 months to 10 months to 12 months to recover.
To recover, right.
They got diversity in it, saying you have to hire a certain amount of people on your damn boards now. It's like, are you kidding me?
It's ridiculous. It's like I said, there are going to be jobs that are never going to come back.
Okay, now do you also know that inside of this package, it has a digital money program set up to where they're going to start taking away cash?
Cash? Wait. Take away cash for what?
Digital money. Like they have in what is it, Pakistan and in India, they have digital money. You're no longer giving money. Everything gets transferred from the employer to a chip in a banking system. That's in it.
That's in this bill.
That's in it. Yes. It's a digital banking system to where you will no longer have cash. That is one of the major elements of independence and freedom in this country is we've got our own damn money. I can do what I want with it. Okay? I can hide it from the government if I want to and play a little hanky-panky. That's an American way. Okay, but they are trying to control every aspect of it. Okay, I'll read it to you in here.
Wow.
This is where it gets into the most archaic garbage I've ever seen. The bill establishes a digital dollar, which is defined as a balance expressed as a dollar value consisting of digital ledger entries and are recorded as liabilities in the accounts of the Federal Reserve Bank. An electronic unit of value redeemable by the eligible financial institution as determined by the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Additionally, a digital dollar wallet is identified as a digital wallet or account maintained by the Federal Reserve Bank on behalf of the person that represents holdings in the electronic device or service that is used to store digital dollars and may be tied to the digital or physical identity. Okay, this is the federal government's response right now to what they call the blockchain, Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because that is becoming somewhat of a threat to the banking systems because it's removing all of the fees, all of the eyes on transferring of monies and the control of the monies.
So their answer is to go
their
digital.
answer now is to do basically the same damn thing, but it's going to be controlled by the Federal Reserve and the federal banking systems.
That's crazy.
It is absolutely insane. What the frick does it have to do with the coronavirus?
Nothing whatsoever.
This is called Congress Gone Nuts. Remember that old show, what is it called? Women or Girls Gone Wild or what it was called?
Yeah, Girls Gone Wild.
Girls Gone Wild. This is government gone crazy. It's insane. It's literally insane. But again, I do not blame the individual representatives. I don't. You can't blame them for the way they are. They are the way they are. I blame 1,000% the gosh dang people that elected them. Are they so selfish they don't understand that when your candidate comes out there and says, hey, Ted, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you that Humvee I showed you this afternoon if you voted for me. And you're going to go, well, hell yeah.
Yeah.
But you don't understand. I'm going to tax you 4 times the amount of that Humvee I gave you.
Yeah, it's like,
okay, so down in the end, I'm going to rip it right off your backside. Right. Okay, but people are so short-sighted that they don't get it. But again, the press is not doing their freaking job by digging into these bills, reporting on it, seeing exactly which congressman said, oh, I want $25 million. Actually, it was originally $35 million. But where the hell is this president at the same time saying, you know what? Forget it. We're not doing this. This is all negotiations. He should have gone through that entire thing and said, you know what? Screw it. All of this crap is out if you want to pass my original $750 billion to help the American worker. Okay? Help them pay their rent. Help them pay their groceries. Help them do what we force them into.
Right.
Okay? If that is this is the only thing I'm going to vote for. This is the only thing I'm going to sign. All this rest of this crap, you want to bring me separate bills to my desk? I'll look at them. I'll sign them. If they pass the House, they pass the Senate. I'm not going to do it. And you know what? Because based on the data that we have achieved on the movement of this virus, this is not as damaging as everybody thought it was going to be. So long as we not encourage but mandate our what do you call it? Our networks, okay? Our broadcast systems throughout to put some of the community PSAs, the public service announcement, of washing your hands, staying socially distanced. If you're sick, stay home. Set out protocols for the elderly that you can't go in there and visit until we get a handle on this. But the government shut down this economy. And the government has a little bit of a responsibility to help those that it hurt, whether you're a small business and or even a corporation. I don't think you need to pay the corporations their profits that they've lost.
No.
But I honestly do believe that you should be able to subsidize the employees that they need to hold on to.
And you can always give corporations major tax breaks as well. That would help offset any losses that they could potentially incur.
Do you know it was a big complaint of Chucky Boy in there in the Senate?
What?
That Donald Trump's corporations could actually utilize the bill as well for his hotels. So they wrote up an exemption, a control aspect of it. But they said they're putting it out there as we just nailed Trump. No, they had to make it broad. Any government employee that has a company cannot get into this fund. Okay? I kind of agree with that, but they targeted it specifically. I agree with it and I disagree. The reasons why they did it was because they were targeting President Trump, and that was it.
Right.
But then they threw everybody else in the mix. Well, look at, he shut down the economy on his own businesses.
Yeah.
But honestly, Trump, I think, is so diverse, okay, with his businesses, because he has them in every other country, that he can sit there and you're going to write it off anyways, the losses.
Well, yeah, any corporation can.
You lose $1 billion, so what? You use the tax code to write it off for the last 3 years. In the next
Right.
3-4 years, you're not going to pay taxes.
Yeah.
You use it as a write-off. So honestly, I don't think he really even gives a crap.
No, I don't think he does, because, and either way it goes, like you said, he has so many diverse businesses that the impact upon him is going to be nominal anyway. It's not going to affect him very much whatsoever. But I agree that the way this whole thing is being handled, this stimulus package it's a cluster. It really and truly is. There should have been more investigative journalists on this, breaking this down, pointing out where the pork was at, and doing something about it. I mean, this is absolutely, like you said, the money that's going to the endowment for the arts, what does that have to do with the coronavirus? The money that's going to NASA, what does that have to do with the coronavirus? There's just so much.
$25 million of the congressional salaries.
I mean,
What's that got to do with it?
There is so much pork in the stimulus package. It's obscene. It's absolutely obscene.
And on that note, we're going to have to go to our last and final advertisement. We'll see you on the other end of it.
My erstwhile opponent says I don't accept debate invitations. I accept the League of Women Voters invitation.
The League of Women Voters LA chapter was the one who invited him to the 5 debates with the battered women's organization, with a synagogue, 2 churches, and the American Legion. And he turned down them all flat with the League of Women Voters. Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. You know, I told you prior to the show starting, Ted, was going to be a kind of a lit one, because I'm like everybody else. I'm kind of got cabin fever going on, stuck in the house doing this shit.
Right.
And watching news 24/7, and then dealing with people on Facebook. You know, there's this one Facebook page out there, CV Los Angeles. You know, and they're mustering up the rhetoric on fear. And it's like, you know what? Look. And they said I was, being a little harsh. Well, you know what? I am a little harsh, because I've seen enough in life to realize this isn't going to be that bad. I have gotten so much data that I know the models and the projections of what's happening. And we're not cold-hearted. Either one of us are cold-hearted.
We're not.
That? Look, my daughter had to go get tested for coronavirus because she falls into that league of individuals, because she has respiratory ailments. If it hit her, I would probably lose my daughter. Okay, but the reality of it is she's doing everything you're supposed to do.
Right.
Stay home. She still has to work. She has 5 kids. She's even pregnant right now. And you know what? They have the same mentality that I have. They're using common sense.
Well,
they're not out there kissing people, hugging people, grabbing their crap off the ground and licking their hands, or licking the rails on they're using common freaking sense.
Yeah, even as a personal aside, I have asthma.
Yeah,
but
it would hit you hard.
But I practice safe.
Yeah.
I wash my hands all the time. I maintain social distancing. I don't establish or engage in personal contact. Yeah, again, I just use common sense.
The complete lack of common sense of these generations now, these millennials and these liberals, and I hate to say it, there's 20 states that have less than 200 cases of coronavirus.
West Virginia has none.
None. And you know what? Most of these states are Republican run.
Yeah.
Okay? You look at the states that are Democrat run, the 2 big ones, California and New York, right? And it's not even the entire state of New York. It's just, Manhattan. Okay, the city of New York, not the state of New York,
Right,
the
yeah.
city of New York, all run by these freaking liberals, okay, that really are disgusting human beings anymore. And I'm not saying Democrats, mind you. I'm saying liberals. And I don't think liberals really represent the Democrat platform in any particular way at all. They represent an ugliness.
They're the loudest voice. That's
Ugliness.
all. They're just the loudest voice.
But they, and it's not the old school liberal either.
No, it isn't.
Okay, there's an old school liberal of the 60s and the 70s. We're actually kind of cool people. You know, my sister was one. I mean, but this is progressive liberal that's going on. And it's like, you know what? Take some freaking personal responsibility in your goddamn lives. Clean yourself up. Realize nobody's out there to take care of you and wipe your ass. Okay, you need to take care of yourself, wipe your own ass, and make sure that your bills are paid, make sure that your life is taken care of, and stop looking to the government to fix everything for you.
Stop
Because
with
you know what? The
entitlement
government's going to
mentality.
go in there and screw it up just like they did this. And I put it out there. I said, look, I'm not happy with the way our elected representatives have dealt with this at all. I think they knee-jerked, over-responded. You know, maybe they could have, well, put it this way. President Trump on January 14th closed off the airlines coming in from China. He bought 3 weeks worth of time for our CDC, the unbelievable departments that we have to sit there and map out the pathogens, the genetics of this particular disease and figure out how to get a handle on it. They bought that time. He was talked into buying some more time. Okay, by closing the economy down, by closing certain things up, shutting businesses down, the social distancings and everything else. Then all of a sudden the stock market took a major dump. And it kept going down. Regardless of what he tried to throw out there to fix it, it kept taking a dump. Until you put the people back to work, the economy is still going to be on massive shaky ground. And if people can't have common sense when they go out there to the general public, then you know what? I hate to say c'est la vie, but c'est la vie. You're going to go. You know that? And if you can't, as a youth, understand that your 80-year-old grandfather or grandmother or auntie might die because you walk in there all over them, then you know what? You should take their place and die in their place. You're a selfish freaking moron.
Well, no, yeah, the ones that are out there that aren't taking this seriously. And in Malcolm, we do take it seriously. All we're saying is that just use common sense precautions.
That's it.
That's all. That's all we're saying. We're not trying to sound harsh, not at all. But there was certainly a better way of handling this. Everybody hates to hear the fact that flu kills more people.
36,000 today. They're estimating 36,000.
But on the
this
average,
year.
it's 167,000 people a year.
That's worldwide.
Right, worldwide, that
Right.
it kills. And everybody hates to hear the comparison. But the COVID-19 is simply a mutation of the flu. That's all it is. What has everybody in such a panic is simply...
It's not a mutation. It's a mutation of 3 other COVID viruses that are out there. This is the third or the fourth COVID virus. Influenza is different. It's a different strand. That's why,
and the way that it's transmitted is different.
the way it's different. Yeah, the way it's transmitted, it's easily transmitted to society. They say one person that's infected with the flu will infect 9 people.
Right.
Okay, but this with COVID-19, they'll infect 45.
Right.
Okay, the death rate, they don't know the baseline yet.
No, they don't.
They have no clue how many people have gotten COVID-19
they
in
don't.
America. They have no clue how many people have gotten it worldwide. They have no clue what the percentage of the death rate is.
They don't.
0. So to sit there and say, oh, this is more deadly than the flu, bullshit. Simple bullshit. Okay, excuse my beautiful French, but you know what? It's flat out bullshit. They don't have baselines on any of this pandemic that's going on.
And
they don't know how many people recovered. They don't know how many people have been infected. They don't know how many people have died. They do know certain things. If you're old and you've got some kind of health problem as an elderly person, you better stay the way and the hell away from it. If you're younger and you got some kind of health problem, you better stay away from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you happen to be sick, either get tested or stay away from these individuals that are vulnerable for it.
Right. Now, we still haven't gotten the news on that young man that died in Antelope
Yeah, he
Valley.
did. He died from toxic shock.
Toxic
Yeah,
shock.
the one that was 19 years
Right,
old.
right.
Yeah, it was toxic shock. It had nothing to do with COVID-19.
Well, how come they said he died from the coronavirus?
They thought he did, but it came out that he died
and then
from
what
toxic
about
shock.
what about the doctor in New York who was in his 30s?
I haven't heard about that
Yeah,
one.
well, he had the coronavirus. He was a healthcare worker, and he died. But again, whether or not he had underlying conditions, I don't know. I'm going to say one thing. The only good thing that's going to come out of this, and we talked about it on the last show, and we talked on a previous show, and that is it put a huge glaring spotlight on the fact that we don't manufacture enough medical equipment, medical supplies, or medication in this country. And we have got to get back to that. That is one of the first things that Donald Trump acknowledged. He said that has got to change. American corporations that make these drugs, they need to be made here in the United States. The fact that China controls 100% of the drugs that we use on a daily basis is obscene. And that can no longer continue. They hold all the cards when it comes to medical equipment, medical supplies. That's why we couldn't get any masks, to the point that you now have clothing companies that are making masks out of cloth.
The mask, Barack Obama depleted the national stockpile.
During the SARS.
100 million masks. You know what? He never replenished them. Okay, and this is where I start getting pissed about all this shit, is because every governor in the federal government took a calculated risk by not doing these things.
Right.
They did not anticipate. What the hell do we spend our taxpayers' money on? The state of California and New York, biggest population, most condensed population. Why haven't they done risk assessments on if a pandemic happened? Do we have enough beds?
No,
do we have enough masks?
No, they did that. They did that. The federal government did a test from January until
No, I'm
August.
talking about before this even happened.
No.
Before President Trump even got into office.
I'm talking about in 2018 or 19. They did a test from January until August, where it made clear and evident that if a pandemic hit the United States, we weren't going to be prepared for it. We weren't. And not enough was done. Nobody thought it would hit. And then a year later or 4 months later, here we are.
Here we are. Well, you brought up the interview, and everybody's watching this one. You need to go into the archives. I believe it was about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Actually, way before. It was a month ago.
It was a few. It was
way before any of this even began. Right. I interviewed Dr. Rosemary Gibson, the author of China RX, that points out all of the supply chain dependencies that we have, not only just on medications, because they control 85% plus of all the active ingredients of all generic medications manufactured, but they also control all of the medical supplies. Now, if you look at, this would be interesting for you, in the stock market, you know that the only country where the stock has remained, stable is China. They're at 0.03% growth in the stock. Every other country's been nailed. Why? Because everybody's going to them to buy all the crap. They shut down their manufacturing for a couple of months. They're back up to 90%. They're pushing it out there like crazy. Okay, but America has got a major problem, and if we don't see it, we're not going to recover properly. We need to create manufacturing of certain goods for national security interests. And when I did that report, that interview with Rosemary Gibson, we discussed that. It needs to be taken out of the commodities market and put into the national securities category, and we need to incentivize manufacturers to bring it back here and not ever leave it.
I agree.
On that note, it's been an exciting episode here between us. I'm all, this is the energy coming out from being locked up in my house for the last 2 weeks. Right? But I want to thank all of you for tuning in, allowing us to have a conversation in front of you. And as you can see, between a Republican and a Democrat, it's nothing like what I've been experiencing out there on Facebook and with the general population. This isn't about a free opportunity to get something for free. This is a serious problem. Listen to the CDC recommendations of how to conduct yourself out there in the general public. Demand accountability of your representatives and all of the pork that got put into this package. They need to be held accountable. They need to be voted out. And that's across the aisle, whether it's Republican or Democrat. They need to be held accountable. On that note, Ted, bring it on home.
I agree. And during this difficult time, practice safe social distancing, wear gloves, wear masks when necessary. Just use good common sense. And remember, ignorance prevails when rational minds sit back and do nothing. Be sure to tune in next week.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Mark Reed and Ted Durden, only on LA Talk Radio.